Hi, welcome to Spruill's Art and Coffee Chats. My name is Kelly Thames and I teach in the Kiln Fused Glass department at Spruill Arts. I am working from home, as you are probably as well, and I would like to explore today the benefits of glass line paint. I know that some of you have tried it with some success and some frustration, and I too have felt the frustration of glass line paint, so I thought this was a good time to explore the benefits and how we can use it better. In this piece here, I used some of the glass line paints painterly, just like paint, and then used it with a stamp. And I know Susie wants to use stamps on her clock, because sometimes actually drawing letters with the glass line can be frustrating or look crude. And so using an actual stamp helps. Many of my students have been painting in lieu of working in glass. So I know Martha and Tammy have paintings that might be able to translate with the glass line paints. And as you can see, I have tons of colors, but as you probably well know, some of them have dried up. That's another thing I'm going to work on over our forced break. Just because they've dried up doesn't mean they're not good, and so when something does dry up, we can add water to it and stir it, but of course our problem is sometimes we add too much water and sometimes we don't add enough. The paint does come out this little tip, and so sometimes if you add too much water it just runs out. And that's where these tips help a lot if you get it too thin. And over this forced break, I've discovered that sometimes when it's a little too thin and using these tips actually works best. So actually going a little too far with it helps. If you're going to buy your glass line paint online, I have found that I get it from a range price-wise of $7 to $14. At Hollander, I can get it for about $7. And what you're also looking for when you do get it is hopefully you will have the seal on it. This one's brand new, but as you can see, it's already pretty thick. But I like having that seal on it. And then this one does need to be shaken. Well, it could be stirred too for that matter. Another use for the glass line paints, we have the stamping and painting, and black is my favorite. I did this piece with the koi, and the black is the glass line paint. I let some of it kind of feather out so it turns gray, and then I put powdered frit for some of the color. I let the natural French vanilla come through, and of course our vitrograph that we make in class. The glass line paints can be mixed and they can be topped with frit, so they're a little more versatile in creating also a different type of glass, like your own signature style. Now, I do have students that are painting, and then I thought, well, what should my topic be for this demo? And I thought of all the heroes of this situation, doctors and first responders and nurses and sanitation specialists and just everybody, grocery store workers, the guy at CVS. And I thought, okay, well, they're inspirational, but maybe I should take our minds off things and do something that's kind of funny or has entertained us. And then I thought of these people, and then I thought, no, they stole at least 7 hours of my life with their train wreck. So I thought, no, not them. So I thought a little longer about, well, who has enjoyed this quarantine? Who has actually would like to see it go on, maybe forever? And the one person that has benefited in my life from this quarantine, and I didn't have to look far, is my dog. So Dakota is going to be my topic. She has enjoyed everyone being home. My college sophomore and unfortunately my high school senior is with us, and I'm don't say unfortunately because he would have rather have been at senior spring break, but they're both with us, and my husband is home, and so when she wants to go out, the door is opened. When she comes back in, it is closed. It's part of my exercise routine, and of course her favorite thing is a tennis ball. and she's getting plenty of fetch and plenty of walks. So this will be my topic when I come back. I'll have everything set up, and we will start working on Dakota in glass line paints. Okay, I'm back with my setup and my inspiration, Dakota. She's in her bed right now. She had an interesting day yesterday. So she's asleep during her artistic debut. If you are having trouble finding kind of muses or what to paint and what to work on, I know Estelle Hart, who also teaches at Spruill and also takes glass classes, has beautiful sketchbooks where she'll do her own sketches, a little watercolor painting of ideas, notes. You can also do clippings, and so you don't have to just be inspired by other glass art. It could be from all sorts of areas. It could be stained glass, it could be sculpture, it could be watercolor. And maybe during our quarantine is to keep those ideas in a notebook so that when you come to class, you are ready to go. And I know that I had problems with ideas sometimes when I would go to Carol Bruhl's clay class. I would go and I would be so overwhelmed with all the really cool stuff everybody was doing, and then I'd be like, I don't know what I want to do. So preparing for class would be great, because I hope to see you in the summer or very soon, whenever we get back to, I guess, our new normal. Anyway, so I wanted to do one other thing with the glass line paints before we get started, is do a technique where we paint it and let it dry. And with all of our glass, you know, we have to clean it. I know some of you are tired of cleaning. I know my hands are raw from washing. But we do need to clean it. Normally we would clean it with our alcohol and vinegar solution, but I have this Windex right here, so I'm just going to use that. So I'm going to make sure that I clean my glass from my project for Dakota, as well as another little side project that I'm going to work on, just as a demonstration of some other things I've seen done with the glass line paints at the ACC show, which unfortunately did not meet this year here in Atlanta. That makes me sad. It's always a very inspirational show. Also, some people ask about smooth side, rough side. We found that doing smooth side to smooth side creates less bubbles. I sometimes like to use the smooth side when I'm painting, but either way, that will be okay. So this was my demo piece I'm going to do first. I'm going to paint it and let it dry, so when we're working on Dakota, we can come back to that. I have a large brush and one of my thicker black paints. And what I'm going to do, and this is just clear, and I just dipped it in water because this one is a really thick one. I'm just going to paint a section in the black, and it is black, and it will fire black, but it looks gray. And so a lot of times I know people have issues with, I need to make it darker. Well, sometimes it is darker, and you just don't realize it until you fire it. And that's the other good thing. I don't always consider them done after one firing. Sometimes they need a second firing, and that is fine. We can usually fire the glass safely 3 times. I'm going to just try to add a little bit more on here to make sure it's good and dark. That's the other kind of tricky thing with the glass line paints. When you look at it, like some of these blues, you'll look at it and think that's kind of light, but they're trying to show you that it's a little darker here. And I know at Hollander and some other places they have examples of where they've all been fired, like little test tiles. In my class, we are too lazy to do that, so you just hope for the best. Maybe I'll make test tiles over this quarantine. You never know what I'll get into. I'll try. Anyway, so I painted this with just black glass line paint, and I'm going to let it dry and then show a technique with that later. Right now, I am going to cheat because I did take this photo, so technically it is mine. And I'm going to put the glass over Dakota. And then I do, because I did take printmaking long time ago, I am going to make registration marks just so I know, in case I pick it up or move, I'll know where to lay my glass again. So I just marked it. So if I pick it up, I can put it right back down where those marks are and know that I am good. And when I am going to use the one that's a little more liquidy, and it does come with these pins which we promptly lose. So I have like one pin for all of the ones that have tips on them. And this does keep the tip so that it doesn't clog, because as soon as this stuff dries, it clogs. This is another one that I've used before, and it's technically a ceramic paint. It's Designer Liner by Mako, and it's worked, but the glass lines have a shinier look than that one. That one kind of has a more matte finish. So I'm going to try not to lose my pen, and hopefully, and this one is very thin, and I do have the paper towel to kind of help it come out so I can see that it's going in a line. What happens to me a lot of times is I'll have a blob, I'll squeeze, and all the paint will come out. And I know many of you have felt that as well. And then I'm just going to use, and it is coming out, and I know it's probably hard to see. I'm getting this line, and I'll hold it up in un momento. So you can see that I'm getting this line. I'm outlining the dog's ear right now and part of her face with the glass line paint with the tip on. So I'm getting that really controlled look. Right now. And this paint is a little thinner than normal. Since she is a black and white dog, I am going to mount it on white. So wherever she's white, I'm going to leave. But there are areas of her that are kind of gray. And I'm going to kind of use the paintbrush to put those in. The eyes I sometimes save till last. But I am going to mark where they are with this pointer, the tipped one. Oop, and I can barely see that eye. And then her nose, just sort of to get the outline. So it is kind of like a line drawing. And then hopefully I can use a paintbrush to kind of thin some of the paint out. Sorry, I'm having to use both hands to get this one to go. So, oops, she's got some nice spots to fill in. And so then I can take a brush, and I do have water. Again, you don't want to water it down too much, but I did want my brush a little flexible, and I can use some of that black paint. I can even take the one that's a little thicker right now and pull it out and fill in those lines where Dakota is darker. Every time I say her name, I think she's going to walk in. She must be really out. Sometimes you can see the brush strokes with this paint, and sometimes I like that because it gives it almost like a print-like quality. I had a student who went on a photo safari, and she came back with all her photos of zebras and giraffes and everything, and she ended up doing all of them, or many of them, in the glass line paints. I've had other students that haven't just used the black, they've used different colors. George did some of the zebras in red, blue, and yellow, and it kind of had a fun Andy Warhol feel. So there's a lot of different things you can do with the paints. If you just kind of figure out what they want to do and what they don't want to do. So that print-like quality, like you saw with my trees and even the koi, the glass line paint really likes to do that. So right now I'm just painting in her face. So you can see I'm going to add more dark to it. But I am going to jump to another section. And actually I'm going to leave the camera for a second because I have to go. I forgot to get all my frits. And I do like the paint with the frit. So I'll be back 1 second. I'm jumping. So we're back. I'm trying to get my green to go. I'm going to stop on Dakota for a little bit. And because what I really had fun with was the background. And the background, of course, is a white piece of glass. And Dakota here is on a bunch of green. So I took the green, Kelly green in fact, and I started to just kind of put it all around. Not a solid, kind of painterly. And you could add other colors, like in this grass, there's some darker green and there's some yellow. And I kind of outlined Dakota in the green, in kind of grass-like marks. And this is another way that you can kind of create your own glass, especially with some of the colors that I don't normally buy. You know, I don't normally buy pink, but we do have a pink glass line paint. Sometimes we run out of yellow, or you just need a splash of yellow. This is a way to do that. So I'm just adding, I'm gonna go around the tennis ball. So this outlines, this green is very thin. I think I added way too much water, but again, that is helping with this tip for me to kind of direct, to actually have it work a little better. And I found that the quality, it's still pretty thick as far as color, even if it is a little thinner. And of course, shaking it, I wish I could take them all to Ace Hardware and have them put them in that paint shaking machine, but they're a little small for that. But this was something that I thought was kind of cool. I had a student a long time ago that would mix them like regular paints. Like if she wanted a lighter green, she would just add white to it, and it worked. But I had another student that would add frit on top of it, so that it kind of created depth and then different colors. So if you wanted a green like grass area, you could put the paint down. Oop, almost got it over her paw. The good thing is just wipe it off. The other thing to remove the paint before you fire it, but it dries, is you can use a toothpick, and I'm going to show you that. So if something bled into an area I didn't want, and I didn't feel like I could just get my finger or paintbrush to nip it out, I could wait for it to dry and then just scratch it off. And so that offers some control as well. And in fact, that scratching project is one that we'll do with this once it dries, hopefully. So right now, what I've done, I don't want to hold it too much up, is I've just added green all around. But wait, there's more. I'm gonna then add a little bit of the frit, and this is a frit that we got from Brenda before she moved to Austin, Texas. And it has a variety of some greens and yellows and even some sunset coral. And sometimes what I like about, when something's green or blue is it doesn't hurt to maybe add some little accents, some warm colors in there. So this frit, I really liked this mix because it had the warmth of the amber and the sunset coral in it, but it also had the green. And then in some areas where you want it to be a little darker, like in the grass, you could use the aventurine green. Ooh, is this aventurine? Yeah. This cap is a peanut butter cap. I don't know where the original one went. A little aventurine green to kind of fill in, to kind of make the green the dominant. Make it a little darker in some areas, especially underneath Dakota, where she's casting maybe a little bit of a shadow waiting for that tennis ball. And also, our favorite, we could put clear. I didn't have any clear on me, but I had this grass green, which was a very light transparent. I'm going to put it near the top. Later it fires more like clear glass, but it has a really interesting look with the paint. And the great thing about the paint right now and doing it while it's wet is it's holding the frit in place. Normally, it would be difficult to do this once the paint was dry, because we usually hairspray, but we don't spray, we drizzle with the hairspray so the frit will stay. Well, the drawback to that, the hairspray on this, is it'll loosen up the paint again. And that's fine kind of on this outside area, but on the inside it might not be so nice, since it would make the paint run. So just like in watercolor, in some cases you might want to let areas dry so the wet on wet don't bleed together. They won't bleed as bad as watercolor, but just that you have more control there and that they don't bleed. And in some cases you may want them to bleed and mix, and you're painting more with a paintbrush. And so it's okay if things get a little out of hand. I do like the combo of the glass line paint with the frit. because then it makes your own signature glass. It's your own colors. You can do mark making with the paint to give it a texture. And so where are we now is, this is upside down, but we have just the frit scattered around with the glass line paints. And it's still wet. So then I would put it back. I would finish up Dakota painting with, and you notice I didn't set, did I set that straight up and down? Sometimes I'll keep it laying down because this one is actually running out. But it's been such a beautiful consistency that I've really enjoyed this bottle of glass line paint. And it has helped that it has been that real runny group. I'm not going to paint everything on Dakota, but I am going to come back. So her eyes, or around her eyes has dried a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and put in her eyeballs. And then with any animal is you, or anyone, humans included, is you want that little white highlight in the eye. In Dakota, she has a little white underneath, like a white eyeliner. So I'm just going to take my toothpick, dip it into the white. I actually have white paint, and I'm going to touch it on there because a big blob of it was headed my way. And kind of go just underneath. Pick up some more of that paint. Just a little accent. And then I'm picking up a little bit of the white paint and doing two like white highlights in the eye to make them look glass-like, that highlight. And she looks very focused on this ball. She is a pointer, so she's kind of pointing with her foot up, waiting for me to toss that ball. I think I eventually did, but I was more interested in getting her photo. Also, you could do on the top of the nose, paint it black, and then add a little white highlight there as well. I'll do that in a moment. The other thing is I was just sprinkling on the frit earlier, but if you wanted more control, like on this tennis ball, you could use the spoon. The other thing that I'm going to do right quick though is the white line on the tennis ball. I'm going to go ahead and paint. And I probably should have done that and let it dry a little bit. If it's not exactly the way I want it, I can always, come back and scrape part of it off. And what's good about the paint is it does have a slightly different look, and that's perfect with the tennis ball because that line is kind of in, and the fluff of the felt of the, I guess it's felt, of the tennis ball, the fluffiness rises above. So I just painted that line. I don't know if you can see it there. I'm working on the dog still. I'm going to leave most of her body white since she is kind of a white dog. Mostly with some lovely little speckles, a little salt and pepper. I'm going to outline some of the areas in like her paw to define. And just doing with like a line, so it almost looks like an ink drawing because I'm getting such a tiny line out of this tip, and I'm rushing because some of you may have to catch the prices right, so and how our schedules have changed. You can make a little hair with little skinny little marks, and her nice fluffy tail. Put a little around the nose. Sorry, I'm rushing through. Her little mouth, serious look. She's very serious when she fetches. The day she quits fetching is the day she quits breathing, because she does love a tennis ball. Okay. So I've done a little bit more on Dakota herself. Oops. I'm running out of room. So you can see I'm still putting in a little of that line work, and I want to hold it up too. I'll hold it up upside down. Don't hold it up too much or that frit will fall off. Now I'm just going to go in and frit the, I would like for my paint to be a little drier, but I'm going to go ahead and frit in the tennis ball. As I'm doing this, I may do not hairspray near the paint, but kind of around the edge to kind of help secure that in. I'm automatically on paper. You know how I like to frit on paper, so we can save the frit, even if it's a nice mixed bag. I'm not using a lot of frit because I really just want the color. I don't want the mass, per se, of the body of the frit itself. I just need that color. And the spring green is about the color of a tennis ball, but I would like to highlight some of it with the yellow. So this is where I'd mix my frit. There is yellow glass line paint, and I could use that too. And I probably could have put it underneath here, so I kind of would paint it yellow and then put the frit on top. Let's see. We got all sorts of good stuff here. I'm going to add a little bit of the yellow. I could even add a little white if I wanted to do more of a highlight at the top of my tennis ball. And then at the bottom of the tennis ball, if I wanted it to look a little darker, have a little shadow, I could put a little bit of the green, a little aventurine to kind of flick in there. And so then, again, I could use a little bit of the paint. This one's really dry. To do some of the gray areas. And do define structure, kind of to define her head from her body, even her legs. Where does the back leg start? Where does the front leg, kind of that muscle structure? Because she does fetch a lot. She is all muscle. There's no fat on that dog whatsoever. She is very fit. I just want to say that. She's no body fat on that dog. So this is the one that I have. I could fill in a couple of other places. Pre-firing, but like a good cooking show. Oh no, where did I put it? I already have one done. And where did I put it? So we have that one. And then the fired one. Oh, let me go grab it. I guess I had it in such a secret location. Aha! We'll pretend like I went to the kiln and got it out. And then this would be it fired. So the fired version, added a little white on her nose, the little highlights in her eyes translated. The black looks, I think, like ink work. I like the tennis ball, but I did put an extra white line here to make it a little more prominent, and so this one does need to be refired. The other thing that I liked was some of the visual texture that I got with the paint and the frit, and so that's with some of those warmer colors coming in there, and also just the texture that the frit made on the paint, but also that kind of line work that I was doing with it as well. So we have kind of before and after, so you can really see that that black got much darker. I probably could go in though and add some more black in there. Remember, it doesn't have to be finished. It can go back into the kiln, and this one is probably going to go back into the kiln, so it's not the finished one, but it's pretty close. The other technique I was going to show was once we let this dry, this is just the black glass line paint. And that one's still not dry yet, but I was working on this one. Here you go, puppy. Is that you can take it, and I don't know if you can see, you can scratch into it. And so, can you see that? Where it'll be black, but then when I scratch using the toothpick, I can scratch any kind of font. And so I have more control of basically using the glass line paint as a negative so that the actual words will be whatever is in the background. And so I don't have a fired one of this one yet, but this will fire black, and then where I scratched out, the yellow will come through, and I did everything will be fabulous because I'm aiming a little higher than okay, being a little more optimistic. But you could scratch out anything you wanted, and have the glass from behind come through and make your words. And so this would be another option to have more control than actually writing out a word, is just scratching it out. And you can do this in any color. You could do a blue, anything, and then scratch the word or whatever saying you wanted. And once it's dried, once it dries, you can really clean up a lot of areas. Really do some detailed work. I've done some of the glass line paint with like a bee, and I was able to put into the wings and things like that. So anyway, so I don't know if you can see that. Everything will be fabulous with the yellow coming through. I'll fire that. This will be black. This will be yellow. Speaking of bees. And so the benefits of glass line paint, especially mixed with the frit. So it's been so fun being with you today. I would like to end with a little quick story about Sam and one of his teachers, who happens to be one of his coaches as well. And we would get the emails about what was due and what classwork needed to be done. And this coach, who knows these students very well and has built a wonderful relationship, would say, "I miss you and I love you." So my students, and everyone who needs to hear it, I miss you and I love you, and I will hopefully see you very, very soon. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.